Coming up, the planet's wealthiest people are protecting themselves from mega wildfires and storms.
We are going to go to a bunker that we might very necessarily need.
But underground shelters highlight a sordid double standard, with some of the biggest polluting companies paying tens of millions of dollars to stay out of waters they helped muddy.
But whatever the future holds, I have some reassuring news. Rich people are going to be okay.
Cars are underwater, basketball courts flooded, and entire streets are washed out in Breibach, Germany, following 2 days of continuous rainfall that has affected nearly the whole Saarland state and caught locals off guard.
My bedroom is downstairs and has never been underwater before. This is the first time today. Floods in my room, that was the worst that could have happened to me.
Some 40 kilometres away, residents of Hemmersdorf woke overnight to emergency services at their doors. Water levels had risen unprecedentedly fast. They had to evacuate.
I was born and raised here, but a flood like this I have never witnessed, and neither have the people in our town.
By Saturday afternoon, Germany's Chancellor Olaf Scholz had arrived to Saarland. Praising the work of volunteers, he noted the need to keep preparing for events like this. In some places in the state, Germany's weather service measured more rainfall in 24 hours than in the whole month of April. Over the border in Belgium, residents ferry sandbags in attempt to protect their properties. It's a situation all too familiar in Central Europe after catastrophic floods 3 years ago hit many of the same regions.
We've ruined the climate ourselves, that's the problem. And I think more water is going to fall. I've been here 11 years. 2021 was the first, this is the second.
In France too, streets were completely submerged in the Northeast Moselle region. Levels reached as high as 40 centimetres in some areas and were yet to hit their peak.
That deadly weather in the south, at least 7 people now reported killed in catastrophic storms in Texas. President Biden approving a disaster declaration for the state overnight. And just outside of Pittsburgh, a confirmed tornado knocked down trees and power lines. Samara Theodore is here with the very latest as these storms now move east today. Samara, good morning.
Good morning, Wynn. In fact, we have video of that tornado in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was an EF1 tornado, maximum winds 105 miles per hour, hit the Highland Park neighborhood, as well as causing damage to some Pittsburgh Zoo, to the Pittsburgh Zoo. And this is the 23rd consecutive day where we've had at least one tornado reported or confirmed. They have a flood warning up in Pittsburgh this morning. You know who else has the threat and potential for flooding? Down along the Gulf Coast, from New Orleans to Mobile, right into Tallahassee. We could see flooding, not only flooding, but some flash flooding. Now, these warnings and watches will expire eastward as the day wears on. But as we move east, our threat for severe weather starts to grow. Damaging winds, flash flooding, and tornadoes possible in this area in the zone in yellow from Destin to Savannah. Let's look at the forecast. Janae, back to you.
It has been weeks that we have started off our weekends tracking those storms or some kind of severe weather events.
Was swept backwards by the force of the current. The flooding is in the small town of Boulay-Moselle in the department of Moselle in eastern France. Overflowing riverbanks led to a steady flow of muddy water in the streets.
This is really something. It's very fast, and we weren't expecting it. Seeing this in the centre of town and on the other side makes you ask questions. You worry.
A few kilometres away in Bouzonville, still in the Moselle department, this car was submerged. Emergency services helped people go down this road. Doing so alone was considered too dangerous. People's homes in the small town of Saint-Avold were flooded. This man showed the damage to his cellar.
There's one step, then a second, and that's the freezer.
He says there is more than 50 centimetres of water.
It's fallen over, it's a mess. We'll clean up and work out the costs later. I don't know what damage there is.
In the neighbouring Lower Rhine department, it's been raining since Thursday evening. The centre of the town of Diemeringen in the department is completely flooded. Driving on some roads is a perilous mission. One car on this one ended up in a ditch. Here near Saverne, still in the Lower Rhine department, the water is rising where the local river has burst its banks. Houses have flood damage. The water has almost reached the top of this bridge.
I was surprised. We've had a lot of rain lately. I didn't think it would rise this fast.
Traffic on around 50 roads has been affected, including on 2 motorways, which were partially closed.
That's electricity again. Now the electricity. It's cold.
Antes mayo era un mes súper otoñal y ahora pasamos de un extremo calor a un extremo frío.
Desde 1950 en adelante, es decir, en los últimos 74 años, no habíamos tenido en mayo una ola de frío tan intensa como la actual. Hemos tenido días con temperaturas todavía más bajas, pero una sucesión de ya 8 días con temperaturas muy por debajo de valores típicos. Así que estamos en presencia de la ola de frío más larga jamás registrada en la capital, al menos desde 1950 para los meses de otoño.
A smoke-choked sky filled with flames. Fire pushes towards the road.
It was like the apocalypse.
People in Cranberry Portage were on a 2-hour standby to leave Saturday night. The situation changed quickly.
And then it turned to 10 minutes. And next thing you know, the police are outside saying, you need to leave. So that's what we did. We packed up and we left.
The fire is now about 32,000 hectares in size and 1.5 kilometers outside of town.
It was very panicky and stuff and just worried about your house.
The fire is believed to have started from lightning strikes. It's being fueled by high winds and dry conditions. More than 500 people forced to leave their homes.
It's been pretty stressful, got to be honest. It was very scary. When a forest fire is coming close, that smoke is frightening, and you see the orange glow behind it.
People packed what they could, hit the road. Many scrambled to find places to sleep.
It's kind of like a game of Tetris, right? So you're trying to fit people in. And then we have large families. Like we have a family of 6 in a hotel room with 2 double beds.
Larry Smirch has lived in Cranberry Portage for nearly 45 years and has been through this before. This time, it's more emotional. and the thought of losing his home and belongings hurts more.
My wife passed away about 1.5 years ago. So when I started talking about collectibles, then I just thought about her.
Highway 10 between the community and Flin Flon briefly opened Monday, allowing CBC to get inside the fire zone. Fire crews have been working around the clock, setting up sprinklers around people's homes and properties to ensure their buildings remain safe, while air tankers from Manitoba and Saskatchewan have been fighting those fires from the sky, and crews from Ontario are on the way. Fred Cook came from Tatasqueat Cree Nation to help.
Right now we're only doing some hot spotting, and we're going to a hot area, a hot zone, where they just finished bucketing.
There is no power. Melissa Lundy and her husband are keeping the gas station running and crews fed.
And I started taking food out of the freezer to cook it for the guys.
The wildfire is not yet threatening Flin Flon, but cell and internet service has been impacted.
So this tent itself is called the O tent. It's for 2 people. What it is essentially for is for use on what's called the fire line. And the fire line is the group that goes to the leading edge of the fire to scope the scale of a wildfire and to then report back to the fire camp. When they've been in scoping the fire, they're exposed to wildfire smoke. That smoke in itself has quite harmful effects, but the effects of that wildfire smoke exposure can be alleviated somewhat by coming out and getting into a fresh air or a clean air environment.
The shape is a teardrop-like shape just to create the aerodynamic, and the textiles that we have chosen is for air permeability. If we go over here, we are actually creating a positive air chamber. With the positive pressure being on the inside, this is how we keep all the dust and the smoke out and creating a clean air circulation inside the tent.
Also, you can see the air unit we're using is 3-layer. Also, you can take it out. When you get dirty, you can change whenever, which one you want.
For future developments, my team and I were thinking of creating a lighter weight filtration system as well, just because this is going to be on the fire line, which means it needs to be transportable and portable and lightweight.
This end result has been tested a few times in sort of simulated situations, but the next result will be that it is being refined and prepared to go to the field with the BC Wildfire Services this summer.
Authorities in Brazil's south say they are planning to build tent cities to house some of the people displaced by historic flooding. The state of Rio Grande do Sul has been devastated by heavy rains since April, forcing 500,000 people to flee their homes. Scientists are warning that it may take a month for the floods to subside.
5 Brazilian army boats are now the only connection in this part of Rio Grande do Sul. Artur's parents are finally ready to travel. For 3 days, they slept in an office. They didn't want to risk a boat crossing with their baby during the latest round of flooding in southern Brazil.
I think we can go now to our city. Maybe, if the car is still there, so we can go back. We work here in Arroio de Maio, so we came, but there was nothing left. The floods destroyed the house and our company.
There used to be a regular ferry here, but now everything depends on the military. Soldiers also bring donations for the more than 11,000 displaced people.
I left at 5:30 this morning and arrived at the school at 8. It is quite complicated because I work at a school in Layado in the morning and in the afternoon here. The school director said I could leave, so I left 5 minutes earlier.
The iron and concrete bridges in this region have collapsed, and many houses have been left in ruins. Marcos's neighborhood has disappeared. He had his life here. It's unbelievable. It looks like a bad dream. Then you come here and you see that it's true. When I got here, I looked around and I saw there was nothing left. My house stood here. There were trees. Here in the front, there was a big, beautiful tree, a strong tree. It broke. You can see what's left of it. I knew 6 or 8 people. Mr. Orlando's family who lived here. Orlando Silva, who I used to buy from at the market. We got along very well. A neighbor of mine also lived here, and the mother of another friend of mine. 2 couples too, all acquaintances, all people I spent many years with. Waters in 6 of the 11 rivers monitored in Rio Grande do Sul are still above dangerous levels. The construction of new bridges won't be finished before July. There are almost 80,000 people who still have nowhere to go, except for the 770 shelters scattered across the region. For now, all they can do is hope that they will be able to rebuild their lives as soon as possible.
The aftermath of devastating flash floods. They occurred from the flow of rivers that originate from the upper slopes of Indonesia's Mount Merapi. It remains one of Sumatra's most active volcanoes. A cold lava flow which is a mixture of volcanic ash, rock debris and water after torrential rains caused landslides and floods. Emergency crews are still looking for the dead, but a shortage of heavy equipment is making the task difficult and slow.
At the moment, we're divided into 2 teams, a ground team that covers a 2-kilometer radius and another team clearing damaged material with heavy equipment. Currently here, we're looking for 2 missing victims, both of whom are over 60 years old.
Villagers have come together to try and clean up.
Currently, the men are working together to clean up the debris that is still piled up and left in the houses. Then all the women are helping by setting up a public kitchen at the evacuation centre to provide food.
There's also a need for essential food. There was no warning when the floods came and some roads remain closed.
We need clean water because clean water here is no longer available, so residents have difficulty. It's far away and only a few spots are left. We also need clothes to help those affected by the disaster.
This latest disaster has displaced hundreds of people and caused extensive destruction. Asad Beg, Al Jazeera.
Luxury bunkers, as they're called, are underground constructions that do just that, and they don't come cheap. Well, they do well to highlight the disparity between the rich and poor, insulating the ultra-wealthy from many of the problems they helped create.
Until recently, doomsday bunkers were the stuff of post-apocalyptic movies. Films like Leave the World Behind and Silo depict people inhabiting sprawling underground shelters after life above ground becomes unlivable. But fiction may be closer to fact than many of us think. Surveys show 1/3 of Americans admit to buying survival items. Underground shelters outfitted with energy, water, and food, however, are way beyond the reach of ordinary people.
This has been a 2024 Atrophied Terrier production.